Dr. Jai-1, Kim stood at the main window of the ISS Horizon, watching the stars. The research ship was the first human vessel to travel this far into space. They were near Alpha Centauri, and everything had been quiet for the past 3 months. That was about to change. "Dr. Kim, we're picking up a signal," said Officer Lee at the communications station. "It's not one of ours." Jai-1 walked quickly to the station. Her heart beat faster as she looked at the screen. After years of searching, they had finally found proof of alien life. The signal was clear and regular, too regular to be natural. "Captain Park, you need to see this," she called out. Captain Daeho Park arrived on the bridge moments later. He was a serious man who had spent 20 years in space. Even he couldn't hide his excitement as he studied the signal pattern. "It's a distress call," he said after a few minutes. "Someone out there needs help." The crew tracked the signal to its source. They found a damaged ship floating in space. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. The ship was twice the size of the horizon and shaped like a giant silver leaf. As they got closer, they saw movement inside through the ship's transparent sections. The creatures inside were tall and slim, with blue-tinted skin that seemed to shine. "They're alive," Jai-1 said, looking through her binoculars. "We need to help them." The rescue operation took 6 hours. The alien ship's main engine was broken, and its crew was running out of air. The Horizon's crew managed to connect an airlock to the damaged ship. Soon, they had their first alien visitors. The aliens called themselves the Nexer. Their leader was a tall figure who introduced himself as the ship commander. He spoke through a translation device that turned his musical sounds into English. "We are grateful for your assistance," the commander said, "but we are surprised. Your species is not known to us." "We're from Earth," Jai-1 explained. "We're just beginning to explore space." The Nexer crew looked around the human ship with great interest. They stopped suddenly when they passed the crew's living quarters. Through the window, they could see Officer Lee's cat, Milo, sleeping on a bed. "Why do you keep a predator in your living space?" the commander asked, his voice full of alarm. Jai-1 smiled. "That's just Milo. He's a cat, a pet. Many humans keep animals as companions." The Nexer looked at each other in confusion. Their translator must have made a mistake. Surely these humans didn't willingly live with predators. "You mean you choose to share your homes with creatures that could harm you?" another Nexer asked. "Cats were wild animals once," Captain Park explained. "Thousands of years ago, humans helped them become friendly. Now they're part of our families. We do the same with dogs. They used to be wolves, but now they're our closest animal friends." The Nexer commander stared at Milo, who had woken up and was now cleaning his paws. The idea of turning dangerous animals into companions was completely new to them. In their culture, you stayed away from predators. You certainly didn't invite them into your home. "Your species is unusual," the commander said finally. "Perhaps this is why we had not heard of you before. You do things differently than any civilization we know." Jai-1 didn't know it then, but this simple conversation about pets would soon become very important. The universe was about to learn just how different humans were, and how their unusual way of dealing with predators might change everything. As the Nexer crew continued their tour of the horizon, more crew members shared stories about their pets back on Earth. Each story seemed to amaze their visitors more. The Nexer were starting to realize that they had discovered something unexpected. A species that didn't just survive among predators, but had found a way to make them into friends. 2 weeks after the rescue, the ISS Horizon's crew sat in the main conference room with their Nexer guests. The alien ship's repairs were almost complete, but the commander had requested an important meeting. His usual calm expression had changed to one of worry. "We must warn you about a great danger," the commander said, his translation device making his voice sound grave. "There are others in space who are far less friendly than us. They are called the Ravagers." Dr. Jai-1 Kim watched as the commander pressed a button on his device. A three-dimensional image appeared above the table. It showed creatures that made everyone in the room sit back in their chairs. They were huge, with scales that looked like armor and claws that could tear through metal. They stood on two legs and had long, powerful tails. The Ravagers destroy everything in their path, the commander explained. They have attacked 12 solar systems in the past year. No one has been able to stop them. Captain Deho Park leaned forward, studying the image carefully. How many of them are there? They have a fleet of 50 ships, each carrying hundreds of warriors, the commander replied. And we have detected their energy signatures heading toward your solar system. The room grew quiet. J1 looked at her fellow crew members. She saw concern on their faces, but not fear. Humans had faced many challenges before. How long do we have? She asked. 3 months, perhaps 4, the commander said. We came to offer help. We can evacuate as many of your people as possible before they arrive. Captain Park shook his head. We don't abandon our home. Earth has survived many threats. We will find a way to deal with these Ravagers. The Nexer commander looked confused. You don't understand. The Ravagers are the most feared predators in known space. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be fought. Every civilization that has tried has been destroyed. Jai-1 was looking at the image again. Something about the Ravagers' behavior pattern in the recording caught her attention. The way they moved, the way they organized their attacks. Commander, she said slowly, could you show us more recordings of the Ravagers? I want to study how they behave in different situations. The commander agreed, though he didn't understand why she would want to watch more scenes of destruction. For the next hour, the crew watched recordings of Ravager attacks. Instead of looking frightened, the humans took notes and discussed what they saw with growing interest. Do you see it? Jai-1 asked Captain Park. They're pack hunters, just like ancient Earth predators. They use the same attack patterns we've seen in studies of prehistoric carnivores. The captain nodded. And look at their social structure. It's similar to what we know about early wolves, before humans began working with them. The Nexer commander listened to their discussion with growing confusion. These humans were analyzing the galaxy's most dangerous predators as if they were studying an interesting puzzle. They weren't showing the normal reaction of fear and despair. What are you thinking? He asked finally. Jai-1 smiled. It was the same smile she had shown when explaining about cats. Commander, humanity has a long history of turning dangerous predators into allies. What we're seeing in these recordings, well, it reminds us of challenges we faced before. You cannot be suggesting. The commander started, then stopped. These humans kept pets. They lived with former predators. They understood things about dealing with dangerous creatures that his people had never considered. As the meeting ended, Captain Park was already sending a message to Earth about their discovery. The Nexer watched as the humans began making plans, not for evacuation, but for something that had never been tried before in the history of space exploration. The universe was about to learn an important lesson about humanity's special talents. 3 months after the Nexer warning, the Ravager fleet appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. Their massive ships cast long shadows across space, blocking out distant stars. Earth's defense fleet waited in formation, but they weren't preparing to fire their weapons. Instead, every ship carried teams of scientists and animal behavior experts. Dr. Hay-Newell stood on the observation deck of Earth's largest space station. As the leading xenobiologist on the project, she had spent the past months studying every piece of information about the Ravagers. Now she would finally see them up close. The Ravager command ship is broadcasting, announced the communications officer. They're demanding our surrender. The main screen lit up, showing the Ravager leader. He was exactly as the Nexer recordings had shown. Tall, muscular, with scales that shimmered like polished armor. His razor-sharp teeth gleamed as he spoke. Humans of Earth, the Ravager leader growled, his words translated by their computers. Your planet now belongs to us. Submit or be destroyed. Instead of panic or fear, the human response confused the Ravagers. Hundreds of cameras and sensors turned on, recording every detail of their appearance and behavior. Dr. Lee watched the readings with growing excitement. "Look at their posture," she said to her team. "See how the leader stands with his head high and tail straight. It's exactly like the dominance displays we see in Earth's large predators." The Ravager leader waited for the humans to beg for mercy. Instead, he saw them taking notes and discussing his behavior as if he were a specimen in a study. This had never happened before. "You dare to ignore our threat," he roared. "We have destroyed entire civilizations." Dr. Lee stepped forward. "We're not ignoring you," she said calmly. "We're learning about you. The way you move, the way you organize your groups, it's fascinating. You're very similar to the great predators that once ruled Earth." The Ravager leader blinked in confusion. No one had ever responded to their threats this way. "You should be afraid," he said, but he sounded less certain. "Why?" Dr. Lee asked. "We've lived alongside predators for thousands of years. Many of them became our closest companions. Look at this." She showed them images from Earth. Police officers working with dogs, big cats playing with their zookeepers, falcons returning to their trainers' arms. The Ravagers watched in silence. "Impossible," the leader said finally. "These are tricks." "No tricks," Dr. Lee replied. "This is what humans do. We understand predators. We respect them. And often, we become friends." The other scientists shared more data. Studies showing how Earth's predators had evolved alongside humans, how trust and cooperation had changed both species. The Ravagers continued watching, their aggressive posture slowly changing to one of curiosity. Dr. Lee noticed something else. The younger Ravagers at the edges of the group were showing signs of interest. Their head crests were raised in a way that suggested curiosity rather than aggression. It was the same behavior she had seen in young predators encountering something new and intriguing. "They're not just warriors," she told her team quietly. "They're a species that never had a chance to be anything else. But we can show them another way." As the first day of contact ended, the Ravager fleet remained in position, but they hadn't attacked. Instead, they had agreed to continue the discussions. It wasn't surrender or victory. It was something entirely new in the history of space exploration. The Nexar observers couldn't believe what they were seeing. The most feared predators in known space were sitting down to talk with humans, all because humans had refused to see them as just monsters to be feared. 1 week after the first contact with the Ravagers, Dr. Sujai Kang stood before the United Earth Council. The large meeting room was filled with representatives from every major nation. Behind her, a screen showed images of Earth's history with animal domestication. "For 15,000 years, Sujai began, humans have been turning wild animals into companions. We did not do this through force. We did it through patience and understanding. Today we can use this knowledge to change our future." She showed them her plan. Project Genesis would be the largest domestication effort in human history. Teams of animal behavior experts would work with the Ravagers, using methods that had worked with Earth's predators. "This is madness," said one council member. "The Ravagers are not simple animals. They have spaceships and weapons." Suji nodded. "Yes, they are more advanced than Earth's predators, but their basic behavior patterns are the same. Dr. Lee's team has proven this. They respond to the same signals of aggression and friendship that we see in all predator species." The council chamber filled with worried whispers. Suji waited for them to quiet down before continuing. She showed them new videos of the Ravager ships. Young Ravagers could be seen watching Earth's broadcasts with great interest. "They are curious about us," she explained. "This is the first step. Just as ancient wolves were first drawn to human camps by curiosity, the Ravagers are drawn to our different way of life." The council president leaned forward. "How long would this project take?" "We cannot rush this," Suji answered. "Domestication is a process that requires time and trust. But we have advantages our ancestors didn't have. We understand the science behind behavioral change. We have thousands of years of experience to guide us." As the council debated, news arrived from the Ravager fleet. A small group of younger Ravagers had requested permission to visit Earth's space station. They wanted to learn more about humans and their relationship with predator species. Suja saw her chance. "Let me work with this group," she requested. "Let me show you that change is possible." After hours of discussion, the council voted. Project Genesis would begin, but with strict safety measures. Suji and her team would work from a special facility on the space station. Every interaction would be recorded and studied. The Nexer observers watched these preparations with disbelief. Their ambassador approached Suji after the meeting. "You truly believe you can change the most dangerous species in known space?" he asked. Suji smiled and showed him a picture from her home. In it, she sat with her large German Shepherd dog, a breed that came from wolves. "Look at this photo," she said. "My dog's ancestors were apex predators that hunted in packs, just like the Ravagers. Now his kind works with police, helps disabled people, and plays with children. Change is always possible if you understand the way." As her team prepared the facility, Sujai reviewed Earth's long history of animal partnerships. From the first wolves that approached human camps to modern service animals, each success had seemed impossible at first. Now they would attempt something even greater. The universe was about to witness humanity's greatest experiment in turning predators into allies. Project Genesis had begun. Dr. Min-Ho Choi spent his entire career studying how animals think and behave. Now, sitting in the observation room of the space station's special facility, he watched as a group of young Ravagers explored the space humans had prepared for them. The room was large and filled with different objects from Earth. There were climbing structures like those used in zoos, comfortable resting areas, and various items the Ravagers could examine. Cameras recorded everything from multiple angles. "Look at their movement patterns," Min-Ho said to his team. "See how they check each corner of the room. It's exactly like wolves exploring new territory." Through the observation window, they could see 5 young Ravagers. These weren't the fierce warriors shown in battle recordings. They moved with curiosity, touching things gently with their clawed hands. Their head crests changed colors as they discovered new items, showing their emotions just as Earth's animals showed theirs through body language. "They're much smarter than Earth's predators," said his assistant. "How can we be sure the same methods will work?" Min-Ho pointed to the screens showing different camera angles. "Intelligence doesn't change basic needs. Look at how they stay close to each other. They're a pack species, just like wolves. They need their group to feel safe." The team had placed food in several locations around the room. They watched as the Ravagers found it. Instead of fighting over the food, the young Ravagers shared it. They even saved some for their older group member who was resting. "That's pack behavior," Min-Ho explained. "They take care of each other. This is very good news for our project." Over the next few days, the team began their careful work. They never showed fear. They moved slowly and spoke softly. When they brought food, they stayed a little longer each time. The Ravagers began to expect these visits. One morning, something important happened. As Min-Ho entered with food, one of the younger Ravagers approached him. Instead of showing aggression, it lowered its head crest, a sign of trust they had learned to recognize. "This is incredible," said the Nexer observer who was watching. "No one has ever gotten this close to a calm Ravager before." Min-Ho smiled, but kept his movements slow and careful. "They're not so different from Earth's predators," he said quietly. "They're scared too. They attack because they think they have to. But we can show them another way." The team discovered more each day. The Ravagers were intelligent and curious. They enjoyed solving puzzles the humans gave them. They showed clear signs of emotion and strong social bonds. Most importantly, they could learn to trust. "Their society is based on strength," Min-Ho explained in his daily report. "They fight because they think it's the only way to survive. But when we show them kindness and respect, they respond, just like Earth's wolves did thousands of years ago." The Nexer spread the news to other alien species. Humans were doing the impossible. They were making friends with the Ravagers. Some aliens didn't believe it. Others wanted to learn more. Minho knew they had a long way to go. But as he watched the young Ravagers play with the enrichment toys his team had designed, he felt hopeful. Change was happening, one small step at a time. Yoonji Baek always stayed late at the research facility. As the youngest member of the domestication team, she spent extra hours studying the Ravagers' behavior patterns. Tonight, her dedication would lead to something extraordinary. She sat in the observation room, watching the youngest Ravager through the window. The team had named him Storm because of the way his scales changed color like storm clouds. Storm was different from the others. He showed more curiosity about humans and less aggressive behavior. "You're special, aren't you?" Yoonji said softly, making notes on her tablet. She didn't know that Storm could hear her through the observation window. The young Ravager lifted his head, looking directly at her. His head crest changed to a soft blue color they had never seen before. Yoonji checked the monitoring equipment. Storm's stress levels were the lowest they had ever recorded. Following her training, but trusting her instincts, Yoonji did something no one had tried yet. She began talking to Storm in a gentle, steady voice, the same way people spoke to nervous animals on Earth. "It's okay," she said. "No one will hurt you here. You're safe." Storm moved closer to the window. His head crest remained blue, and his tail relaxed. All signs of calm they had learned to recognize. Yoonji continued talking, sharing stories about Earth's animals and how humans had made friends with them. Then something amazing happened. Storm made a soft chirping sound, a noise they had only heard Ravagers make to each other, never to other species. He pressed one clawed hand gently against the window. Yoonji's heart beat faster, but she stayed calm. Following safety protocols, she pressed the emergency alert button that would bring the senior researchers. Then she did something brave. She placed her hand against the window, matching Storm's position. When Dr. Minho Choi arrived minutes later, he couldn't believe what he saw. The young Ravager was sitting peacefully by the window, making friendly chirping sounds, while Yoonji talked to him. Storm's vital signs showed no aggression or fear. "How did you do this?" Minho asked quietly, not wanting to disturb the moment. "I treated him like any scared animal who needs a friend," Yoonji explained. "He may be from another planet, but he still wants to feel safe and understood." Over the next few hours, the whole research team watched as Storm continued to interact with Yoonji. The other young Ravagers, seeing Storm's calm behavior, began approaching the window too. Their head crests showed the same peaceful blue color. The Nexer observers recorded everything. This was the first time in known space history that anyone had achieved peaceful communication with a Ravager. But Yoonji wasn't thinking about making history. She was focused on Storm, who was now attempting to copy the simple hand gestures she showed him. "This changes everything," Dr. Sujai Kang said, watching from the doorway. "We've proven that positive reinforcement works, even with the most feared species in space." When the older Ravagers learned about what happened, their reaction surprised everyone. Instead of anger, they showed interest. Some even requested to observe these peaceful interactions. They had never seen their young so calm and happy. Yoonji's breakthrough would become famous across the galaxy. But that night, she simply sat with Storm, two beings from different worlds learning to trust each other. She knew this was just the beginning of a much bigger change. 3 months after Yoonji's breakthrough with Storm, Dr. Jae-won Kim stood before a gathering of Ravager leaders on the space station. The room that once held nervous tension now felt different. Several young Ravagers, including Storm, sat calmly among the humans. "What we've discovered is remarkable," Jae-won explained, showing data on the large screen. "Your species' aggressive behavior isn't natural. It was learned over generations of fighting for survival." The Ravager's supreme leader, who had once threatened to destroy Earth, watched with interest as Storm demonstrated his new abilities. The young Ravager could now understand simple hand signals and had learned to be gentle when handling objects. Most surprisingly, his natural color patterns had become permanently softer, showing his peaceful state of mind. Show them the comparison, Dr. Sujai Kang suggested. Jai-Wan displayed two brain scans side by side. One showed a Ravager's brain during battle. The other showed Storm's brain while playing with Yunji. The difference was clear even to those who couldn't read the data. The aggression center of the brain is much less active in the domesticated group, Jai-Wan explained. Instead, we see increased activity in areas related to trust and social bonding. This is exactly what happened with Earth's wolves as they became dogs. One of the Ravager leaders stood up. Unlike before, his head crest showed curious colors instead of threatening ones. You're saying we became violent because we had to be, not because we are meant to be. Exactly, Jai-Wan replied. Your ancestors probably faced great dangers. They survived by becoming fierce. Each generation taught the next that violence was the only way. But you have a choice now. The evidence was hard to deny. The young Ravagers in the domestication program were healthier and calmer than any in their history. They still had their strength and intelligence, but they used these abilities differently. They worked with humans instead of against them. More Ravager ships arrived at Earth each day, not to attack, but to learn. They watched in amazement as Storm and his group showed them a new way of living. The humans taught them about cooperation, trust, and the strength that comes from friendship. It's like watching history repeat itself, Dr. Min-Ho Choi said as he observed a group of Ravager children playing with human children in a special safe zone. Just as our ancestors changed wolves into dogs, we're helping the Ravagers find their gentler nature. The Nexer could hardly believe what they were seeing. The species they had feared for generations was changing before their eyes. Some Nexer scientists even joined the human research teams, eager to learn these remarkable techniques. Jai-Wan's team made another important discovery. When Ravagers chose to be peaceful, their bodies changed. Their armor-like scales became less sharp, and their claws naturally retracted when not needed. They were adapting, just as Earth's domesticated animals had adapted to life with humans. Nature is amazing, Jai-Wan told her team as they watched a group of Ravagers help build a new section of the space station. When given the chance to live in peace, all species can change. We just have to show them it's possible. The transformation had begun, and it would change the universe forever. 5 years after the first contact with the Ravagers, Dr. Jai-Wan Kim stood before the Galactic Council. Representatives from 100 different species filled the grand chamber. Among them sat several Ravagers, their scales gleaming softly in the light. Today, I present the final results of Project Genesis, Jai-Wan began. Storm stood beside her, his head crest showing calm blue colors. He was now an adult, twice her size, but his gentle movements showed the success of their work. The room's main screen displayed images from across the galaxy. Ravagers now worked alongside other species as guardians and peacekeepers. Their strength and intelligence, once feared, had become valuable gifts used to help others. In just 5 years, Jai-Wan continued, over half of all Ravagers have chosen to join the domestication program. They haven't lost their power or their pride. Instead, they found a new way to use their natural abilities. Storm stepped forward, demonstrating how he could now communicate in multiple languages and help with complex tasks. The council watched in amazement as he solved problems that once would have led to violence, using intelligence and patience instead. But the most important change, Jai-Wan said, wasn't physical. It was in how they saw themselves and how others saw them. She showed new data from across the galaxy. Planets that once lived in fear of Ravager attacks now welcomed them as protectors. Young Ravagers grew up learning about cooperation instead of conquest. The entire species was changing, one generation at a time. The Nexer ambassador spoke next. When humans first told us they could turn predators into friends, we thought they were foolish. Now we understand that this is humanity's greatest gift to the universe. More evidence appeared on the screen. Other species had begun using human methods to solve conflicts with dangerous creatures on their own worlds. The idea of turning enemies into allies was spreading across the galaxy. In the 5 years since Project Genesis began, not a single Ravager ship had attacked another world. Instead, they helped protect peaceful species from other dangers. Their fierce nature hadn't disappeared. It had found a better purpose. "Humans didn't change who we are," said the Ravager's supreme leader, now a strong supporter of the project. "They showed us who we could be. They saw past our violence to the truth beneath." Jai-1 ended her presentation with a final image. It showed Storm playing with children from 20 different species, all of them safe and happy together. The picture said more than words ever could about how much the universe had changed. What humans did with wolves thousands of years ago wasn't just luck, she concluded. Understanding and patience can transform any relationship. This is the lesson Earth offers to the stars. As the council meeting ended, representatives from dozens of worlds asked to learn more about human domestication techniques. The Ravagers, once the most feared species in space, had become living proof that change was possible. Storm gently bumped his head against Ji-1's shoulder, a gesture of friendship that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. Together, they watched as the council chamber filled with beings of all kinds, talking and sharing ideas. The universe had learned its lesson well. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in fighting enemies, but in turning them into friends. And no species in the galaxy was better at that than humans.